time aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. Richard and I are separated by a very large continent as I sit here at the Beverly Hilton, having arrived in the wee hours of the night. Mr. Kerr, how the heck are you?
Hey man, it's been a good weekend catching up in between New York trips here back to back. We had a long week last week and we got an even longer week ahead. Otherwise, it's good to be home.
I really struggle with that sort of travel because I did it for a long time, and it's obviously so great to be home, but I just, knowing that you're just home for the weekend and you're heading back out, there's this dread all weekend of I am literally like taking the clothes out of the suitcase, I'm washing them, I'm putting them back in the suitcase, I'm hugging the kids a few times, and then I'm gone, and it's just ugh.
Yeah, pretty brutal, but hopefully pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. So we'll keep down on the pavement one way or another, man.
Yep, so let's pound the pavement through a quick show because we both have a very full day today. For folks who are just tuning in, you can text us or leave us a voicemail at 571-293-6659. You can email Ed at Pizza in Motion if you have questions. You can find him on all those social media places at Kerr Points. You can find me at Pizza in Motion in most of those same places as well. And if you want to support the show, you'll find a link in the show notes for our Slack community, which is our little version of Patreon. Got some pretty cool giveaways there, including I need to spend a little bit of time figuring the details out, but we're going to be giving away one lucky winner is going to win a United Club membership for a year. So all kinds of good stuff to talk about today. Well, I guess not all good. We get to talk about my disaster of travel experience yesterday. We're going to talk a little bit about Southwest's Companion Pass, which I think is going to be big news for a number of folks, the different paths that they have to earn it. And then we might just touch on your newfound love for Marriott, Mr. Kerr.
Yeah.
He sounds so enthusiastic about it.
Yeah, man, it's kind of just weird all around. Weird travel. You had weird travel. I had some weird travel. There's potentially weird travel ahead of me tomorrow with the flight getting canceled 2 days in advance. So I don't know, just kind of some weird stuff floating around. But and then like maybe a hurricane up affecting New York State by the end of next week if Hurricane Lee, and I'm coming, So I don't know, just kind of like a weird couple weeks of travel stuff going on.
Yeah, and I think, I did get a chance to see the new Capital One Lounge. We'll talk about in a bit. But to your point on weird travel, I there were storms at Dulles yesterday when I took off, and that sort of delayed everything. I had, my wife's best friend was also in the airport, and she was dealing with some delays, and it really just solidified for me how bad some airlines are at working through weather delays. Because once the ramp reopened, a number of I could see the international flights out of Dulles from where I was sitting. I was in the D concourse facing the B concourse, and the international flights started, popping in and out and doing their departures and stuff like that. And as a general rule, those delays were a lot less horrible than United. United's operation just traffic jammed, and some of it's self-induced. I don't know if you remember a number of years ago, I guess probably 2013, 2014, they reworked their operation to make it so that most flights were out and backs. So the crews stayed together in hubs, and they would go, say, Chicago to Vegas and back, and then Chicago to Seattle and back. And then after a couple of years of that, realizing they couldn't make as much money, they switched back to a dynamic workforce where they move people around, which is great when everything's perfect, and it's an utter disaster when it's not.
The one thing that intrigues me about this is it's in my, I don't know, 15, 20 years of professional flying in and out of Atlanta. The Atlanta hub for Delta does not have these kinds of, like, Atlanta never gets bogged down. Like there's no 50 plane takeoff line at Atlanta. There's no complete planes getting with no gates. Like, don't know however Delta has it figured out, but that's the one thing that really figured this out. So whenever I see United or American have hub meltdowns, I've just like it doesn't happen to Delta, and I'm just curious how they have Atlanta. I mean, like you don't hear the same like Minneapolis, Detroit, Salt Lake. Rarely do you hear of a hub meltdown for Delta versus Dallas or Dulles or Newark melting down. So I'm just always curious how what Delta does so different that prevents these kinds of situations.
Well, to some degree, I think some of it is self-inflicted in the way that the different airlines set up the operations. In our example, if we assume that the gate agent is telling us the truth, which, as you know, is not always the case, but in this case, it seems to be believable. We were waiting for two crew members who were on two separate planes. So I was on a 787, and we had everybody except for two flight attendants. And we waited almost 2 hours for one of the 2 flight attendants that was late. And so, like, if you rewind that and think about it, they're stuck because they were on the ground, but the ramp closed. Dulles has firm rules about lightning. Anytime that there's lightning within X miles of the field, the ramp shuts down for 30 minutes. And a lot of
R-
airports are like that.
Rightfully so. Like,
Exactly right. Yeah.
yeah.
So you could see everything had stopped for a while, and then when it started, obviously started slow for United just because they had so much congestion at that point. And the fact that that flight attendant took almost 2 hours to get to our plane, if that's true, that means that whatever flight they were on, it took almost 2 hours after those passengers landed to get to a gate. And I think I know what happened there. So, as you know from traveling, through Dulles, if you're clearing customs as a general rule, you're changing terminals, and that's usually by moon buggy. And I think customs has been overwhelmed there the last couple times I've been in. I think customs got overwhelmed. Then I think the moon buggies got overwhelmed. Then, based on a story that my wife's friend was telling me, she's like, "There's some hallway blocked here, so we can't board." And so I think the customs hallway in CD got full waiting for the moon buggies, and so they couldn't open the door to let her flight board because, as you know, you got that hallway in between the gate area and the gate where you people shuffle off to the right to go to customs, and then they flip the door around the other way when you board your flight leaving departing the U.S. So I think the system backed up all the way because they don't have enough resources, and you could blame that on Dulles, no question. But if you to your point, if you're Delta in that situation in Atlanta, you've figured it out. You've
Yeah.
you've worked with the airport to put the resources in, and if you're United, who's never wanted to put a dime into Dulles, ever, like they've resisted it, strongly. They just don't have the resources when these things happen.
So even the moon buggies shut down when lightning starts.
Yeah, I think well, it's a good question. I don't know. I think they don't,
Yeah, there's
but
no reason they
hey,
shouldn't, or they should, right?
I don't know, but I think it was just a matter of things backed up otherwise. So, like, there were so many like, this is mid-afternoon when things started to slow down, which is a big arrival and departure time for international, like, European flights for Dulles. I think once customs got overwhelmed, it just backed everything else up because they didn't have a place to put people. And
Yeah.
so they didn't have extra moon buggies to keep moving people. But in this situation, maybe even if they had, I'm not sure that customs had the capacity. And this goes back to global entry and all that stuff.
I've seen some pictures of the Dulles Customs lately, and I'm like, oof.
Yeah.
I know when I came through there quickly from London, the only weird thing is that there was no separate crew line, so they were using the global entry line. So
Yeah.
all of us with global entry had to wait on the crew to go through. And I was like, this is weird. This
Yeah,
is
yeah, that was the same way it was for me. When we got back from the when I got back from well, no, I guess it wouldn't have been Faroe Islands. Oh, it was Denmark with Charlie. We got back from, Denmark. Yeah, the moon buggies pulled up, and they wouldn't open the doors to the moon buggies at customs yet because there were so many people outside at that top, like, mezzanine level before you go down the escalators.
hope you don't have to go to the bathroom because you're stuck on a moon buggy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. But, yeah, everything sort of backed up, and then I had like, it was a small thing, but then I had one of the weirdest things on this flight. So, we obviously waited around for 2 hours, and I guess maybe the crew just got, sort of numb to everything that was going on. As you followed along and sort of like the play-by-play, I did get upgraded to first class on this flight. There did seem to be some shenanigans with the list here and there along the way, but, it was weird. I got upgraded even though I disappeared from the upgrade list and never reappeared on it, and the gate agent handed me a boarding pass, and I haven't checked my app to see if it shows that I got upgraded later on, but I got no notification of the upgrade. There was some weird stuff where a crew member had the same seat as another passenger who had gotten upgraded. So the whole thing was just a little bit bizarre. But what was odd was, as I think I've told you before, I always take a quick nap whenever I hop on a flight. It's my superpower. It's usually right after takeoff. But knowing that we were going to be on the ground for at least another hour, I'm like, oh, screw it. I'm just gonna take a nap now, and then I'll start crushing some work. And so I laid back for a nap, and these are the Polaris seats. It was a 787, so I'm laid all the way back. I mean, 95% of the way back. Like, it is very clear I am not upright. And I wake up from my nap, I'm like, "Huh, that's weird. It feels like the plane's moving." And, like, I sit up a little bit in the seat, like, the windows are now dark. I'm like, "Wow, I napped longer than I thought I was gonna nap." And, like, the plane is moving. And as I peek out the window to the side, I see the thick white stripes of the end of the runway, and I realize we have and now cleared onto the runway. We're getting ready for takeoff, and I am still fully reclined in my seat.
Passed out for takeoff. Yeah, they just didn't do that final walkthrough.
So I
They
did not. I almost had my first lie flat takeoff. I managed to scramble my seat most of the way straight up before takeoff.
private jet style right there. Take off in the bed in the back.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, it was a real show at Dulles yesterday, and you might be in for one too. We took a little peek at what's going on with your flight, and you got notification your flight was canceled by Flighty. United doesn't necessarily show that though.
Yeah, so we're recording this on Sunday, flying to New York early Monday morning, and yesterday, Saturday, got a flighty notification that said, "Hey, your inbound flight is canceled. So we're going to monitor impacts to your flight." And I was like, "What? That's kind of weird." Like, on one half of me is impressed, right? Hey, if we're planning that far ahead, then like maybe there's something that's
Right.
going to come in and save the day. But very busy day and morning, so I haven't had a chance to really investigate it. But you just took a look, and it looks like my inbound flight is stuck in Panama City because of crew rest time. Panama City, Panama, not Florida. So yeah, if the plane's still in Panama, at the time of recording, we got a whole day before it's got to get up to Newark and then back down to Atlanta. So there have been a couple times where I've taken this 6 a.m. flight and the inbound flight has not landed until like 2 a.m. And I always feel bad for those poor people and crew who were
Yeah.
stuck in Newark until like taking off at midnight. And I think it's scheduled to be like a 8 p.m. takeoff. So yeah, it's still time to recover. So we'll take a look and we will adjust accordingly.
Yeah, and in fairness, like we didn't look yesterday, so it is possible that they've already switched your inbound to something that isn't canceled. So hard to say exactly what's going on, but I would imagine just based on how much was delayed out of Dulles yesterday. I mean, the board was at least 30 or 40% red, which was canceled, and then significant delays. I'm sure tons of people were left behind. So I have a feeling there's going to be a mess of a hangover from that today as well. So
And storms are going through New York right now as we record.
ooh.
So we'll see. And if we got to move meetings, then we got to move meetings. Things will go on.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, most people who are not road warriors don't think about it this way, but the winter time when things get cold is actually more predictable for road warriors. It moves slower because you're de-icing, and so you just know that you're building, the airlines pad the schedules and you build in that you're going to be, 20 minutes late. But things actually move pretty reliably in cold weather, and thunderstorms are just they're kind of a show.
Or as we say down south, they're a little bit of a bugaboo.
You come up with all kinds of interesting words through these shows. Love it. Love it. All right, well, let's talk about Southwest, man. Not only did I think this was an interesting time for them to roll this out, I thought it was interesting in the way that they sequenced this. So I'll cover the three bits of what they've got on offer, and you can comment on what you think, and then I'm a follow up after that with my thoughts as well. So first, for folks who don't know, the companion pass is one of the best benefits in travel, in my opinion, and I think in Richard's as well. You can bring someone with you as a companion for free every time you either buy a flight or use points, Southwest Rapid Rewards points for. They raised the requirements for the companion pass not too long ago. Now requires 100 qualifying one-way flights or 135,000 qualifying points in a calendar year. So what did Southwest do to make this easy? First, they're offering double or triple companion pass qualifying points. That was harder to say than it should have been. Double points for anybody who flies between now and the end of November. Triple points if you're a business traveler and you book through one of Southwest's business channels. Reward travel now counts, which I think is interesting. I haven't studied what the ratio is there in terms of how it counts, but that's the number two. Reward travel counts towards your companion pass. And then if you're spending on one of their credit cards, you'll earn double companion pass qualifying points for every dollar you spend on any of your Rapid Rewards credit cards issued by Chase.
So for the reward travel, it says every flight you purchase with Rapid Rewards points counts as one companion pass qualifying flight. So if you're
So just counts in the qualifying flight category, not in the points category.
so if you're after the 100 flights, whew,
Mhm.
100. That is 100. That is 50 days of flying round trip Southwest out of the year.
Oh, no, you could just do Atlanta, Orlando, back and forth. You could cover that. You could do like 6 a day, I would bet, maybe even more.
So if you did, but that was still, I don't know. That's a lot of that's a lot of segments
That's a lot of
to make that
that's a lot of
happen.
pain.
Yeah. And my overall thought is, hey, if you were close and considering finishing up the year to make it happen, then these are all fantastic. Whichever one you want to go. If you're like me and I haven't flown Southwest at all this year, I don't think. Nope. It's not like starting from scratch here in September. These are is gonna make it happen. So it's a great way to top it off for newbies. So don't get too excited. It's still not that easy if you're starting out close to zero here in September.
Yeah, if you're starting out close to 0, I would say for a business traveler, it gets remarkably easier with triple qualifying points, and I had to think about this one. I don't actually remember them ever doing something like this publicly for their business customers. We know the business channels exist, but I don't really remember them doing something separate for them.
No, I tell you, I don't know how I got on the email list, but I got on the email list for Southwest Biz, and it's been pretty not maybe aggressive is not the right word, but pretty significant marketing push to
Mm,
me through emails for Southwest Biz specific things. And I try to
hmm.
remember, I think maybe I tried to get all the TPG staff for a while to book through Southwest Biz. So like I can't remember why, but it gets more and more intriguing to me. And of all the switching airlines that we've talked about forming here between Atlanta and New York, Southwest does fly Atlanta to LaGuardia. So, I think it's
Oh, I
something
didn't know that.
it's something I'm going to research more. Number one, I don't know how many times they do it a day, but I know they do fly the route. But if they're going to keep offering things like triple points and whatnot, then I mean that gets a little bit more compelling, and it's certainly worth me looking more into Southwest Biz.
And you could have 4A on every single Southwest flight if you wanted it. Every single one.
You could, because I don't think anybody in early boarding is going jetting for 4A. No, I'm either. Well, I got my seats on Southwest.
Kirk class, baby. Last
Yep,
row. Although they don't do
all
the
the way.
party row anymore. There is no backwards facing row.
There's not. Yeah, my first plane flight ever in my life when I was 8 years old was on a backward facing row. True story.
On Southwest or somewhere else?
Air South 737-300 from Atlanta to
Oh.
Columbia, South Carolina. And that airline existed for about 6 months, but it was my first flight. So I guess my parents found a great deal to get us all on there since there were 6 of us.
Didn't they put a plane in a swamp or something at some point?
They very well could have. I remember what the tail livery looks like. That's all, and I remember the backward facing seat, but that is all I remember. There is a nice Wikipedia page about Air South. So if you want to go read a little history about that airline, you go do that on Wikipedia.
Yeah, well, I'm probably not gonna do that.
No. The only thing that's interesting about that to me is how competitive it used to be here in the US versus now just 5 airlines and probably only 2 choices depending on your route for most of
Yeah.
them. So I found it interesting to see how many
So let's
competitors there were.
so let's ask this question then, and it's a little bit out of the blue, but based on where things stand right now, let's just assume that you continue to what's the right word to use here? To despise your commute from Newark to the city.
It's pretty
Um,
bad.
it is. So let's just say it gets bad enough. Would you consider switching, knowing that you're never going to be in first, if you knew the companion pass was in reach? Like if this was April or May and they were running this promo and you had till November and you thought you could hit it, would you make the switch?
What is the math on that? So 135,000 points, and how many points does Biz I imagine I could convince Bill to buy me the business fares for just the flexibility alone that it would save him in like well, there's not too many change fees with Southwest, but there's fare difference. But the flexibility and early boarding and whatnot. I don't know how many points you get on that normally. So, like, how much would I have to spend in airfare? I guess is a question. If you're
Business Select
buying,
is 12 points per dollar.
so does that mean you're getting 36 points per dollar? Is that what it means?
Well, no. How
It's
you get from
triple
Oh, right,
through.
okay. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Oh, right, yes, yeah, yeah. See, it's
No
I
time
am
for you,
I
36.
I am such a dumpster fire. My head is killing me. Like with my 2 hour delay, I got to the hotel literally around midnight last night, which was like 3 a.m. my body clock time. So I am completely whacked right now. So yeah,
I mean,
36. So
so
135,000 divided by 36
s-
is 3,700.
yeah, so yes is the short answer there. Like, absolutely. If that's the way it's gonna go, because a companion pass, for me and the curves to fly around would be very helpful. And Southwest route map from Atlanta is pretty robust. So I don't know, man. I mean, that's why we're having this is a great conversation to have in real time to be like, why have I not really looked at this if that's all the airfare that's required? Is it truly 36 points per dollar? Even if it was double, I'm gonna spend 7 grand in airfare in a year, no problem, by half the year.
You are, but one of the things I will say is I don't and I don't fly Southwest a ton, but I fly them a reasonable amount. And I know you know that I'm, a much more bougie traveler than you, and so I'm willing to buy the business select fare to make sure I can have my seat choice on Southwest. And I'd say probably close to half the time I'm not willing to pay the premium to go from any time to business select. It used to be fine. It used to be not a big gap, but in some cases it can be an extra $100 a flight and you're not getting an extra $100 in value because even as an anytime you're going to get a reasonable boarding pass or you can just buy early bird. Although, we talked about in the show a few weeks ago that they're not going to sell early bird on every route, but I've been able to find early bird for sale on enough routes that it was cheaper for me to buy like Want to Getaway Plus and then buy Early Bird, which at some point we should definitely go into more detail on why I think Want to Getaway Plus is an awesome option for business travelers. But so maybe you got to spend, a little bit more because you're not getting, 36 points per dollar, but you're getting, 30 or something like that. Yeah. But I mean, certainly you're going to earn, quite a bit more, especially if you're booking them through SWA Biz. I don't know if you could book them all through SWA Biz for what you do, but I would think you could.
Yeah. I've taken a look at the portal again. Something that I'm definitely going to be researching and checking out because I think there's even bonus points earnings for being like booking through SWA Biz. So I need to do the math on what it's going to take to get a companion pass in 2024.
Yeah.
And then you want to get it as early as possible, right? So you like start flying January 3rd on the first trip to New York, and that way you got it for the rest of 24.
Sure.
And but it's just so that you get it for the rest of 24 and all of 25, right?
Yeah, sure. But I mean, like yes, but I would think based on your travel, once you're on the train, you'll be on the train there'll be enough promos along the way, I think, for you to maintain it. Because that's what this is like this is them making sure they've got enough, elites, if you will, staying put. And so they're running a promo near the end of the year to encourage people to, get a little more spend in and lock it up. And I would also argue too, I mean, you'd probably have to do some rescheduling of flights, but I would bet you could almost hit this now because you don't need to hit you've got your December travel in there as well. I would bet you could get pretty close, especially if you added a credit card in there.
I have a feeling that November and December for New York are going to be very expensive. The last couple of years have been insane, and I just feel like it's going to be even. I mean, last week was Fashion Week and the U.S. Open, and I was paying over, after taxes and fees and everything, over $400 a night for Spring Hill Suites. That was a 200 square foot room. So, I mean, I think it's just going to be a little bit bonkers the rest of the year. September is usually a chill time. After last week, like this week should be much more affordable, but I don't know, man. It's a good point. Like how many, I need to take a look at airfares.
What are you paying for a ticket now?
About 400 round trip through United. So, I mean.
Yeah. So, I mean, even if things price goes up a little bit in the final couple months of the year, I mean, if that creeps up to 500, you're talking 7 round trips.
Yeah. And I'm going to have to take a look at Southwest flight schedule. Hey, how have those flights performed over the last month, right? Because if there's only 2 flights a day, that's probably not going to work for me just based on how many times I do same day change and change the schedule around, either get home earlier or have to stay later. So I don't know. A lot of research, man. We should follow up on this next week. I will take a peek.
Ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here first on the Miles to Go podcast. Right after earning United 1K, Richard switches to Southwest. Boom.
I mean, we know we're looking for the home, right? But United has been good to me, right? Since April, I'm shooting, I flew economy home on Friday, and I was like, this is weird. I've cleared almost every upgrade for the last month with United, and I've already cleared for tomorrow.
United has been good to you.
Yeah.
Let me ask you a question.
I haven't finished my statement yet.
Okay, go ahead. Finish the statement.
But, there's just these weird things that pop up, like on Friday where it said that we were going to board before the inbound plane had landed. But then I think about Summer's story where she also thought that was the case, and then she showed up to her gate and the flight was gone. So now I'm physically looking at every tool I have: Flight Radar 24, Flight Aware, the United app, Flighty. I am fully aware they have not switched aircraft, and that my inbound aircraft is not even in the arrival pattern yet. But I find myself walking down to the gate at Newark just so I don't get left behind like Summer did. So I'm
quote unquote, other than the hour of my time that United wasted 72 hours ago, they've been really good to me. Oh, wait. And then there was that other time.
But out of 20, I think I'm at 26 segments, 4 have been pretty annoying, right? So 22 out of 26 going good, and I'm probably up front in 15 out of those 22. The other ones, I'm in a perfectly fine economy seat with onboard entertainment that American Airlines doesn't offer. And then I'm earning United miles, which I can still get decent value out of, right? Compared to still compared to collecting Sky Miles. But the biggest thing is landing at Newark and trying to get into the city. It took me an hour and 40 minutes door to door last Wednesday. And that is that is killing me, right? So I do have a couple options. One is switch back to Southwest or Delta to get to LaGuardia and cross my fingers that American brings back Atlanta LaGuardia, which I think is going to happen sooner rather than later, or buy a Blade Pass and fly. Buy $800 Blade Pass out of my pocket so that I can fly Blade in and out of the city. And then, because at that point a Blade becomes $95. And dude, my lifts to and from Newark in the office have all been over $100, right? So buy $800 Blade Pass out of pocket and then expense the $95 Blade ride back to the company, because that's what I'm paying for lifts right now. And that would, I think, be pretty substantial time savings. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
really, after sitting in that, again, people, if you land in the new Terminal A from Newark to get to my office is in NoHo, right? It is an airside bus from A to Terminal C, and then you got to wait, and then you got to wait on planes backing in and out, a little bit of traffic jam. And there were so many buses at Terminal C that the driver had to escort me off the bus and walk me across the tarmac because he couldn't get the bus any closer to where the buses drop off. And it was just some kind of dumpster fire going on. Just to do that, that was about 20 minutes. Then you got to walk to the plane train. You got to wait for on the plane train. You get on the plane train that has no air conditioning. It was 100 degrees in Newark, so I'm already sweating through my clothes at this point. Then you got to walk up and over the bridge, and then wait on the train. Then you get on New Jersey Transit, which is always delayed en route because of traffic coming in and out of Penn Station. So you sit there and stop for 15 minutes. Then you get to Penn, and you got to walk. They got construction going on at Penn. And from Penn, then you can finally walk to a cab, walk to a subway. Anyways, an hour and 40 minutes after walking off my plane, not even landing, right? We landed 25 minutes before I walk off the plane. Just that time suck right there is like, why am I not buying an $800 blade pass out of pocket to save myself not only this time, but this madness of like this absurd commuting process? Because the Port Authority of New York, New Jersey cannot figure out, and what they claim is one of the greatest cities in the world, to have express public transportation from any of the 3 airports into the city. Like, it is just absolutely mind-boggling. Or not build the plane train to the new United terminal. Like, how they screwed that one up. And nobody can offer an explanation, including the Port Authority themselves. Like, it is just absolutely so if I do switch off United, it will be because of Newark. It will not be because of United. Like, that is
Sure. No, I get it. I get it.
that is the
I
deal.
get it.
Like, it is just, it's all I'm thinking about. Like, when I'm packing my suitcase this afternoon, I'm thinking, how much am I just going to be punching myself in the face while I try and get from Newark to the office tomorrow morning? Like, I'm just going to be going
Just
absolutely
record that. Just record that, please.
We're recording this right now, but I mean,
No, I
that
mean
is
you.
what
No, you punching yourself in your face. I want to see that.
I mean. Like, it's like doing that commute or sitting in traffic now to get to the Holland Tunnel. Like, there's a bottleneck
Yeah.
of 2 major roads to get into the tunnel. And just to get through that bottleneck to get into the tunnel, 40 minutes. You're sitting in a lift. Like, it's just, what are you supposed to do, right? What do the authorities in the government think that people are supposed to do, right? It's just like, how did none of them ever do this commute one time themselves to go, we should probably fix this? And I think that tunnel's closing, right, for huge renovation work. Like, I think the Holland Tunnel's about to close, is what my coworkers told me. If that's the case,
Is the
man,
whole
then
thing closing or just one tube closing?
either way, man, if that's the
Yeah.
case,
Oh no, it'll be a
like,
disaster. Any of it'll be a disaster.
yeah. So I don't know, man. That's why everybody listening to this is probably like, buy the $800 blade pass and save yourself all of the madness of this craziness. Unless you hate helicopters, and then you probably don't want to do that. But I don't know, man.
Holland Tunnel out of New York City will close overnight through 2025. New Jersey-bound traffic will be barred for several hours, 6 nights a week, while crews repair decades-old damage from Hurricane Sandy. So that shouldn't affect you too much.
How does a hurricane damage a tunnel? That's what I don't know.
It flooded.
Oh, it did. It's not under the bedrock. I don't know. Anyways, next topic.
Yeah, last topic, because I know you got to run. I wanted to just provide a follow-up on the Cap One Lounge at Dulles, because I did get to go. I wrote a story on it that I haven't published yet, because the whole got in disgustingly late last night. You and I recorded first thing this morning. Should have it up at some point today. I think I would summarize it by saying, I know Cap One spent a fortune on this lounge, and I just wish they had been able to spend that fortune on a space that really actually worked for a lounge. I found the
That's
staff.
It's a pretty damning statement.
Yep. So let me just cover a couple of things that, So first off, as you know, like, this lounge has only been open 2 days at this point, so there aren't a lot of people that even know about it yet. I walk into the lounge, and as I check in the lounge, like, directly to the right is how you get to the back, and it's like the easiest path is just like 2 feet to your right and go straight. Except that's where the flight of stairs is in the lounge. To go down into the lounge.
Oh, it's not all on that same level?
No. And then there's stairs to get up to the bar, or you go all the way over to the left-hand corner where everybody's waiting for the bathrooms in a very narrow hallway. So you're like, excuse me, to go down the ramp with your bag. Excuse me, as you're waiting to get the bag. Then there's another ramp to get around back to the bar area if you have a suitcase. Which, what are the chances that you'd have a suitcase in an airport lounge? Oh, wait, 100%. That was a real issue. And it probably wouldn't be an issue if that hallway wasn't where the bathrooms were, but there were, half a dozen people in that hallway pretty much the entire time I was there waiting for one of the bathrooms to open up. And so getting a suitcase up and down a narrow hallway with people standing waiting for the bathroom isn't
I
relaxing.
just don't understand that smart people do this. Like, I thought the same thought when I went to the brand new United Club at the new Newark Terminal A on Friday, and I was like, I know they're up above. Like, you come out of security at the same level, and the lounge is just over the open space. And I was like, oh,
Right.
is there a bridge connector or something like that? No, you got to go all the way down across, and then there's only stairs to get back to the lounge, or one really slow elevator. So there's a
Yes.
line of people waiting, and I'm like, who? How? Like, did a single person who never travels once design these things? Like,
Yeah.
one look at the plans, and I would be like, there should be an escalator, there should be 2 elevators, or let's just make a little bridge here from security right across the top to the lounge where you can just walk instead of down. It's just like, just how, man? Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
how? I don't.
Yeah.
One look at
So,
the plans and be like, oh, that's not going to work. Same for this
no.
lounge. It sounds like, oh,
Yeah.
that's not going to work. Let's not do that. Oh,
Other short comments, 2 days after the lounge opened, middle of the afternoon on a Sunday, not like early, like 2 o'clock, so not necessarily the busy time for the airport just yet. When I got there, every seat was full. And I don't mean sorry, there were a couple of single seats where like a family of 3 was taking the cluster of 4 seats. So it wasn't like every seat was full, but there were no areas for a new group to sit, period. How do I know this? Because I have a picture of my food sitting on top of the trash can, because that's where I ate for the first 10 minutes. And then a table opened up the flight of stairs. And so like I like hustled my suitcase over real quick, lifted the suitcase and the briefcase up the 4 stairs to grab the table real quick before somebody else could. Then I scurried back down the stairs to get my food and come back up so I could get my table. If I'd gone around the ramp, a couple had been working their way around the ramp, got there about 45 seconds after I snagged the table, and they were like, "Wait, oh, table gone. Sorry." So all the tables were already full. The bar was stacked with people. The staff was great. Like every time I had an empty plate near me, they would clear it. Is there anything else I can get for you, sir? Like very polite, very helpful. The barista bar moved quickly. So like which takeaway coffee, we talked about that last week on last week's episode. The grab and go station was fully stocked. All that was great. The hot plates, I would say during my visit, frequently empty. The kitchen just couldn't keep up timing wise, and you know, power's not as readily available as I thought it would be. All the tables on the top level don't have power. Most of the others do, but so there are places in the lounge where you can't charge, which I thought was odd. At any rate, I would say like if you're gonna do it, there are luggage lockers on the top level. I think you almost have to just throw your bags in a luggage locker, lock them up, and then walk around the lounge, because even if you did take the ramps, it's just it's very tight, and trying to navigate your suitcase through the areas of tables by the bar is would be a struggle. Last thing I'd say is if you're gonna go, the place to go is there are these little nooks in the far corner, and the nooks are the one place where you can like sort of have your own space. Hi kids.
for everybody watching this, these are my 2 kids coming in, and guess what, Ed? They
Time to
are
wrap?
whining. They are whining about they can't agree on what cartoon to watch.
Oh, definitely gummy bears. Yeah, gummy bears bouncing here and there and everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody wants to hear me sing. All right. Well, you need to go take care of your kids, obviously, as they fight with each other about
Yes,
cartoons.
as they stand behind us here in the video, and I'm like, "Hey, recording. Everybody knows what that means. We don't come up unless it's an emergency." Ladies and gentlemen,
It
if
is
you don't
now
have children arguing over cartoons, is the emergency. Oh, look, there's a little bear right over my shoulder.
absolutely an emergency. All right. So in 2025, when Richard gets his Blade Pass, we will absolutely review it. Until then, we've got miles to go.
How much am I just going to be punching myself in the face